Hey everybody, Edo here, and today I want to talk about canceling a campaign that has already funded or is just about to fund. This has always been happening, but recently James Hudson posted like a TikTok diagram, like little short about it, and I know there was some GameFund game that canceled recently, I forget even the name, and there's just been a lot of discussion again. There's always a lot of discussion anytime it happens, but I don't know. I was more bored this time, and I read it, and some of it triggered me a little bit. Some of it got me a little excited and hot and bothered, and I wanted to share my perspective on a few elements. I'm not going to end this debate, but, I think there's some concepts on both sides that I wanted to share. To be clear, this is not about any specific campaign or person or individual, whatever. Honestly, I don't even care that much. Like, I'm not following these campaigns. I'm not in it. I'm not the backer. They all have their own perspectives and situations. And, anything that seems like an allusion to, it's not. This is just my general perspective here. Before I get into my relatively small number of items, I wanted to give a baseline to start from. So, I feel strongly about this. I wrote some notes. I've got some notes to make sure that I hit the points. But, so I have run a ton of Kickstarter campaigns, and I've never canceled a funded campaign. I think, I've had my fair share of games that have just squeaked by. Gem Pack Cards was $12K, and I think we did $13,500, $13,600. I've had campaigns that funded and then ended up costing way more. My first campaign, Liftoff, cost an additional $10,000 beyond what was expected, and I've certainly had a lot of day one funds. So, I've had the range. I haven't had a failed Kickstarter, and I haven't had one where I actively canceled it after funding, so that's important. I also wanted to make something clear. For Pencil First Games, for me, the funding goal does not exactly equal the amount of money it takes to manufacture and fulfill the project. What that funding goal is, from my perspective, is the minimum amount of money I would need in order to make this game a reality and fulfill it to the number of folks that would have been required to hit that number. You might only need 300, 400, 500, 1,000 copies if you're end at 15K. If your goal is 90K, maybe you have more copies. But from my perspective, it is a number that I am 100% committed to delivering against. Now, this isn't loaded against other people. I'm just saying from my perspective, when I do the math, sometimes maybe, I'm willing to offset some of the original spend, or I think it's good for the line, or I just really want to do it. But the number I put there, and I've moved it around, but whatever that number is, from my perspective, for Pencil First Games, is if we hit that number, I'm going to deliver to those folks. That's my commitment. With that said, canceled Kickstarters don't really bother me personally. Generally speaking, being a Kickstarter creator, I assume they have good reason to cancel, and I certainly wouldn't want the case where they proceed in a situation that doesn't make sense. Like, that wouldn't be great. And I think, again, for Kickstarters for me right now, I'm not terribly committed to any specific one. I certainly back Kickstarters and I'm engaged on the platform, but I'm not like in it to win it on any one specifically. I'll note that, generally speaking, I haven't gone to too many Kickstarters where I did back it, they canceled because of, and had already funded and then backed it again. I generally, it's not that appealing to me anymore, personally. I have definitely backed Kickstarters that failed, that I thought were cool or otherwise, and sometimes I did preview for the game, and then it's trying again. Faction Fighters is one that failed and is back on and has been relatively modest. I think they funded the second time, but they just didn't make it the first, and I think he canceled. But who knows? Maybe I'm remembering correctly, and he had funded and canceled. But I don't think that was the case with that one. It doesn't bother me. Little side thing. I was reading all the comments, and I thought it was particularly interesting how many content creators were vehemently coming to the defense of the Kickstarter creator. There's nothing wrong with that, of course, but I guess I expected the opposite, And I was thinking about it, and I don't know if it's because it's a symbiotic relationship or because a lot of creators are trying to and working their way into the industry beyond just content creation, or it's because they're all part of the Facebook community and interact with everybody, so there's a little bit more of a friend relationship or an understanding. Like, to be clear, I don't think it's insidious. Like, I'm not trying to say like there's some scandal, but I think part of it is having more empathy and understanding of what that Kickstarter creator is going through, and perhaps more understanding of the industry in general and how it works. So I'll talk about that a little bit more, but I sort of thought that folks who were sort of not just, there's the previews and stuff, but it just surprised me. I wasn't expecting it. To Kickstarter creators, fundamentally, you are the end of the line. No matter what is said here, in any forum, anywhere, do not do a Kickstarter if you're not ready to, and don't just go through with a Kickstarter, whatever the fun, like, if it's not right, it doesn't feel good, you're on the hook, and no one else is. I mean, it could be a company, right? But I just wholeheartedly feel that that's that person's decision. There are consequences, there are realities, there's understanding, but like, you make your call. I believe that, I support that, because you're the person, it's presumably your dream, and you're the person that has to be committed to executing it, and I think that is somewhat paramount. I'll also note that I think all Kickstarters are unique, all campaigns that funded and canceled are unique, and their reasons are unique. So again, it's such a case-by-case issue and case-by-case concept. I feel like I will be saying some general things, but that's almost more about the discourse around it than actually what any specific Kickstarter did. So again, not alluding to anything in specific. Okay, so some of the things. One, like, Kickstarter backers, like, aren't the 1% who know all the industry, insider ball, and manufacturing and all that stuff, right? And simply put, your funding goal is the amount, that is what the creator is saying they need in order to deliver. Tons of reasons you can cancel a game. But I think that is the fundamental social contract that Kickstarter is based upon. It is based upon the idea that you're saying, if I had that, I can do this. Honestly, I sort of get a little bothered with funding payments for shipping after the fact. Like, to me, that's still sort of like a little outside, because there's this weird line where you don't have the money you necessarily need if you're planning on asking backers for shipping later. I know over time that's become a minority opinion, but it comes from that same fundamental truth to me, that that is what that contract is about. That is what's being said. And so there's another thing. This is sort of on the backer side to a degree. One of the stronger arguments I see from creators or whomever who's sort of in support of the person who canceled, is that, to some degree, everything's on the creator, and the reality is, you aren't losing anything, backer. You're getting, they don't take your money. Why are you making this deal? Why are you complaining if at the end of the day, when they cancel the campaign, you didn't lose any money? They didn't even charge you. You literally haven't even been charged. That, I think, is a major building block of that side of the conversation. To me, I think that's a little bit of a blind statement. And so, let me see, a modern Kickstarter campaign, and the Kickstarter sort of in general, isn't just asking for backers and their money. I mean, certainly that's a component on it, but you're engaging them. You're asking them to participate, to return, to spend time there, to tell their friends, right? To work on the stretch goals, go through all this, really be a part of it, right? And spend, this is really important. There's the money, which hasn't been taken from them. They will get that back. But what they won't get back is the time. It's the time reading about your campaign, believing in the product, spending, engaging on boards, telling friends. The social credit that they're giving to you when they tell somebody else to come check out your campaign and back it, right? Not everyone on Kickstarter works that way, but certainly a lot of the people who are upset do. The people who go to a campaign, click it, and don't remember probably aren't as upset. The crew that's mad is the crew that's there, and they've become your crew, okay? And so when that person has spent that social credit, they've backed you, they've told other people about you or the game, right? And you pull the rug out from under them, and the product's funded, and then you cancel it. And especially these are the ones where it's funded big and still gotten canceled, right? Like, they feel like a chump. And like, it's a really sort of aggressive way of saying it, but I just want to emphasize the point. Like, it's not simply they didn't have the opportunity for their money to be taken away from it. They've emotionally invested their time, their interest, their engagement, as well as sort of repped for you. And to be in that situation and then find out, oh, well, like, I don't know, it would be like if you voted for a candidate for office and went out and campaigned for them, they won, and then they said, you know what, I'm not gonna take the seat. I forget it, I don't really want to do it. I think that gets lost. I think that perspective that people are more than just investing the potential money is something I see not well represented enough. And I really want creators to understand it. As I said, do you. Like, do what you want to do. Like, I'm not saying don't do what you need to do. I'm just saying understand where that comes from. So let's go to the other side for a second, okay? What are some legitimate reasons to cancel a funded campaign of any size? Okay? 1, there has been some change in the marketplace or the world that fundamentally has changed the basic assumptions or baseline assumptions of the project. This could be the manufacturing process, shipping costs, like new information during the campaign that makes it so that the money earned is insufficient. Right? This is a situation, and this happens. It happens that a Kickstarter creator is still working through the process, going through things, getting quotes back, trying new quotes, but suddenly looking at and understanding, hey, we've funded, but this number is not going to be the same, and we don't think we can cut it. That is a totally, completely legitimate, from my perspective, reason to cancel a campaign, and over 2, 3, 4 weeks, you'd be surprised, but that information does exist, in particular, over the last few years. But I really do think there's for me, there's been new information during a campaign that made me consider that, and ultimately I may have taken on more risk or, made the decision from the situation I'm in. But not everyone can take the same amount of risk, and not everyone has the same tolerances, and there can be new information. It is possible. Something happens outside, this is reason number 2, something happens outside of the scope of the game that impacts the creator. This could be something that happened with that company unrelated to the campaign. This could be something that happens to the creator's personal life. A family member, could have it pass away, or like a life-changing event. Or even like you could find out some new unsavory thing about a contributor or whatever. But there are I do think there needs to be an appreciation for what comes after Kickstarter, especially with a creator who's done multiple campaigns. And if you're not mentally in the right place, financial, whatever the situation, if there has been a change and that is no longer feasible or possible, that could be another reason to cancel. And maybe it's not in the exact window, but there's a lot of momentum and time to go. But sometimes these problems, these issues sort of build over time. So there can be something that seems off and grows, and you sort of keep your plan, and then you realize you're in the wrong spot. That's possible. So this last one is also important, and so again, these are I'm just trying to give some good reasons, right? They're putting patterns. But the last one is during the campaign, while engaging with backers, there's some fundamental truths that are revealed about the game that the creator missed, was blind to, is forced to swallow, they fundamentally didn't understand their player base, or they fundamentally a price point or feature set, or what the market is interested in and wants. And something that has produced a situation where it has dawned on them that it's not the right game, it's not the right product, it's not done in the right place. Here's where I think people, James did do the thing where he said there was all these cascading pieces. I think that was an interesting video, but one piece that I think gets overlooked as well is if you sort of come to a conclusion about a fundamental change you want to do, or if you have people who have invested, in particularly so much that it's funded that you have a lot of money in place, you in some ways are obligated to deliver the project you've sold to them. Now, again, it's a potential product, you haven't sold it, but just fundamentally, if you have sold the idea of going left, and then along the way you actually come to appreciate that actually you should be going right, and you're like, you know what, everybody, we're going to go right, then everyone who wanted left is upset with you. And you can't, and arguably, like, you've misled them. And so when you cancel a campaign, in some ways, yeah, it allows the Kickstarter backer to retool, the Kickstarter creator to retool everything, but actually, it's creating space for the backer to decide whether they want to get back on the boat. And I think that's actually pretty important. So I really do think there is space for, especially with lots of backer engagement, to come to an understanding and a clarity that wasn't there, and fundamentally want to address that product and want to address that change and feel like you need to reboot or restart. And that's that. So along those lines, I think a question is, but are Kickstarter creators fundamentally trying to manipulate the Kickstarter platform? And I absolutely think that's the case, right? I absolutely think it's the case that creators set easy to hit targets in order to have a robust first day, which drives momentum and creates it. I mean, it is an open and active and regular conversation amongst creators about that. It is totally legitimate. But that's a little different than actively saying, I'm going to run a campaign, intentionally miss, build a I think for the most part, from my perspective, everyone's legitimately trying to be successful and trying to make the best decisions to do that. Some people sort of set up poor situations and create problems for themselves. And ultimately some people have eyes, my mom used to say, eyes bigger than your stomach, right? You think it's one way and then you find out it's not. And some people do think things are going to go differently than they do. So I do believe it happens, and I do believe there is manipulation. I do believe that's something you should be pissed off about and frustrated with because of all those other reasons I brought before. So the tension I don't disagree with. It's just I still think Kickstarter creators should do what they need to do. On the quick, there are tons of blown costs that you have to eat if you run a campaign and it fails. It's all the marketing, all the prep, everything, all the ad spend, that's pretty significant. However, it's also certainly the case that when you do another campaign, if you've already done one, you have a huge leg up and a new base, and you have a ton of content you've created and videos from reviewers. And, if a marketing deal was a back-end deal, that's another reason you might cancel. But I think the perspective of, hey, you're going to lose a ton of money if you cancel a campaign, I think is true. But this perspective of you have a leg up if you cancel a campaign and you've already got all that content, that's true as well. There are always better ways to deal with how you handle canceling a campaign. And we're not talking about how you manage it, and if you do a video or you tell backers or you don't, handling that. There are people who have done it really well and people who have done it really poorly, but for sure, you're certainly going to have backlash, especially the bigger you've overfunded, the more investment and engagement you have from those people. But I'll say that backlash doesn't represent enough folks necessarily to be meaningful to the creator. They have to deal with it, but I think the reality is people want are backing a game and they're really interested in it. And if the game comes back and tries again, most folks will try again. There definitely will be people who are sour, and I think there's a lot of momentum around that. But I think the system is reasonably set up for creators to try again. There's no penalty for canceling a funded campaign. And certainly on the failed campaign, there's a mantra around trying again, retooling, and figuring out, right? So, okay, coming to the end here. So where does this leave us, right? Like, I think whenever this happens, the bigger the campaign, it's big press. People are upset, and there's a lot of conversation. I don't personally think it has lasting damage to the creator, more so perhaps, but certainly not to Kickstarter, because I don't think it's really representative to the large amount of campaigns that are happening on any given Sunday. So it does happen, and it is always worth discussing, but I feel like we all will continue and we'll move on. And, to backers who are upset, I do echo the sentiment that there are legitimate reasons on why a funded campaign might be canceled. And it is important to give the creator space, because ultimately they're the one driving the boat. Like, if you want them to go where, you don't want them to implode, or the boat's not going to get there. And, I would argue that a funded canceled campaign is better than a late or an unfulfilled campaign, right? Like, if you imagine that maybe some of those campaigns that never got over the finish line should have been killed before they took off, I'd rather the creator stopping there than blowing through $250,000 of everyone's money and then not delivering, right? And then, so I think that's a big deal. And then to the other side, the upset creators or backers, supporters of that on that side of the fence, like, just don't try to gaslight people into thinking, or that the funding goal is not the funding goal, and the meaning of that isn't the amount of money you need to run the campaign, and that they've done nothing or put nothing of no effort. Again, this isn't loaded against any creator, but I see the arguments and the back and forth, and I feel like it's a blind, it's just, you didn't take your money, what's your problem? And I think there's more to be appreciated there. And so to close, right, I think the Kickstarter platform has absolutely transformed board games and the board game industry in what I would say is a positive way. I think there are problems and things that are always need to be improved, but in terms of the range of content and type of content, and I interviewed Dan Hughes from Core Quest. That is a flippin' wonderful story. That is something that Kickstarter makes possible, and I think that's really amazing. And so, again, I just think let's all just be a little bit nicer to each other. But, I just wanted to add my 2 cents to the overall chat. Please, if you have comments, criticisms, argue in discussions, comment below, and I'm happy to talk through there as well. All right. Thanks. Bye. Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.